Welcome to this broadcast of Joyce in the Word with your host, Joyce Rogers.
Well, good morning, and thank you for joining me for Joyce in the Word. We're in what I would call election season, and if you're like me, I would imagine you are receiving a lot of printouts, push cards, or perhaps telephone calls and things of that nature, asking you to vote for someone in particular. And then also you might be receiving, that's on a national level, of course, but you also may be receiving info on persons from a local level. I received some information. Of course, I know we're always receiving information as to the qualifications of a person and, excuse me, and who they are, what they do, and all of that. And it kind of took me back to when I was growing up. And what I mean by that is this. I remember years ago when, or should I say my parents, knew of certain candidates running for certain positions. And some, of course, you didn't know. And, some they had an opinion of that might have been favorable. Others, perhaps not as good. But I think back and I remember how this used to be a trend. I don't know if it still exists today. Can't say, wouldn't attempt to. But it used to be a trend whereby persons would come to the community and maybe they knew a person, a name had been given to them, a reference, so to speak, and they would talk to that person to get a feel for the community and to see if they could get some votes. Now, I thought about that when I saw some endorsements that, I received, and I know you all received them also. And honestly, this is nothing or no one in particular. It just made me think back as to how we used to play that game. What do I mean playing that game? Well, maybe I didn't even know that person, or maybe my parents didn't even know that person. But someone comes to the community and they ask another person, hey, how many votes can you get me? Can you make a recommendation of some people I can go see? Or can I get you to put my name out there and to perhaps coerce people to vote for me? That's what I thought about when I saw the endorsement sheets or the push cards that I saw earlier. So often, we don't know who we're endorsing. Now, sometimes we might not. But that just told me that when you don't know who you're endorsing and you put your name out there, it makes me wonder, how much does your name mean to you? The scripture says a good name is to be desired over riches. What is your name worth to you? Does it mean anything? See, because so often I believe people just kind of jump on the bandwagon. You don't know, just because I endorse someone, I might know them. If you're endorsing and you don't really know me, but you're going to affix your name because I put mine on there. And I could really know that person, but I know them in a different way in which you know them. But all too often, I think that we endorse people, and I really hope, it's not like old school. People get kickbacks and all sorts of things for endorsements. Their name means kickback. That's what the name represents. Now, I know we don't really know people like that, but I'm talking about back in the day when things like that used to take place. But I used to do another TV show. It was called The Joyce Rogers Show. And I had the opportunity to talk to many people, to interview many people, many elected officials and so forth. But you know what I liked about that? They all had a connection with the church. They were not people just straight off the street. You know, I could really ask their pastor about them and say, and it doesn't mean that they ran together because the pastor could speak on their behalf, but it did mean that there was an affiliation. You know, with this being political season, we see candidates going everywhere. May not even have a church home of their own. But when it's time for that vote, then we may have gone to our home church maybe 2 or 3 times that year, or maybe 2 or 3 months prior to, so that we can establish ourselves within a certain limelight. Not necessarily who we really are, but because I know I'm going to be seeking a position, I need to try to establish what I would call a church base. Not because I'm really going to church for that reason, but it just makes my resume look good. When you see community involvement, and then you see work with this organization, and then on there you see church affiliation. And we are bad about this thing of church affiliation. Whether we know that person has a real affiliation with that church or not. When we see church affiliation, it says, well, I'm glad they're going to church. Well, it must be true because it's on the card. It's on the push card. How often do we talk and endorse people that we know nothing of? How often do we put our names to cards and to people and we know nothing about that person? See, I think, and I also thought about this, and there are some well-known national figures. And what they do is almost like a meal ticket for them. If it's something going on and perhaps they want some money based upon whatever that event or activity is, so often, you know, and I understand a consultant fee and all of that, but I'm talking about something different from a consultation fee. I'm speaking more about a fee that I get from you because people might think something of me, and because they might think something of me, I'm going to lend my name to you so that you can use it. We see celebrities all the time jumping on the bandwagon, having had no affiliation with the people that they're endorsing. No affiliation whatsoever. And because there is no affiliation, when we watch TV, when we watch a promo, when we use the social media, what do we see? We see, well, this person has been endorsed by that person. Well, you know, I like them, so that means I'm going to vote in this direction. Not knowing that that association means nothing even to those persons. It means nothing. It's just a way of old school getting a vote. Getting a vote. We need to be more cognizant of the people that we are putting in office. We need to know something about some of the histories of some of these persons. You know, it's not, and I know everyone has done something, you know, just by being on this earth. no one has lived that perfected life. Everyone has some history. But yet, if I'm going to coerce someone to vote for you, and when I, in my heart of hearts, when I really know that what they are saying is not really who they are, then I have a problem voting. And if I knew that you don't know them and you're telling me to vote for them, then I would have a serious problem with that. Because that's just an outright lie, a fabrication. Why would I vote for someone and I don't know if they are for me or against me? So often people have you ever come across people and you hear them talking and they say something to a group of people or to some people, and then no sooner than they say it, you may walk up and say it because you heard them. You say, well, why did you say that? You think it means something. And they'll say something like, oh, I was just telling them something. You're just telling them something? You're just telling them something? So in other words, your word means nothing. We shouldn't even attempt to go by what you say. I was watching this show. This was a long time ago. And a court show. And the person had been taken to court. Took a person to court because whatever the agreement they made, the contract, so to speak, or the verbal contract wasn't kept for whatever reason. Okay, and so the gentleman is telling the judge, I don't have a written contract. And she asks, why don't you have a written contract? And he said, because when I was growing up, a man's word was his bond. A man's word was his bond. Well, we do know that we don't necessarily live in those times now, do we? And so she told him, she said, sir, well, I'm sorry about that, but we are living in a different era right now. And if you don't get it in writing, then you have nothing to stand on. And so she ruled against him because he's of the mindset that the person who said what they said had integrity. Now, integrity means that you have some principles that's going to tell you right from wrong. Integrity says that you're going to have some morals, and when I say morals, there's more than one way to describe that, but there are some morals, some values that would constrain you from doing wrong. Well, integrity is lacking nowadays. Integrity should mean, to a certain extent, in terms of election, I shouldn't say or do just anything to get your vote. If I tell you, or if you tell me when you're elected, if I vote for you, and when you are elected, you're going to do this, that, and that, I'm expecting you to do this, that, and that. But then, when you have a different story for every person that you come in contact with, then your yay is not yay, and your nay is not nay. Have you known people sometimes that say, I swear, on my mother's grave? Now that's evil there. I swear. Because anything more than yay, anything more than nay, is from the evil one. So we have to do this sometime, not we, but people do this sometime because their lives have been so raggedy, or maybe because they have lied intentionally so frequently that their word doesn't mean anything. And when I say intentional, see, I know people can tell things that are not true, and they can do it unbeknown to them, thinking they're telling the truth and they're not. And even that, I believe I know people have lied intentionally for whatever reasons, based upon conditions or circumstances. But that should not be your protocol. That should not be the way you operate on a regular basis. Because I just dare say anyone that's at least, let's just benefit of the doubt, 20 and above, or at least 20 or above, you have lied intentionally, out of fear or for whatever reason you have lied. But when you make your living lying one to another, it's something wrong with that picture. See, people that work to get your vote should have some credibility. Credibility in what sense? Credibility that they are involved in church activities. At some point during the course of your knowing them, somewhere in their conversation, you ought to hear something about God, about the Lord. You ought to hear something that lets me know I can make an association with you having a moral conscience. I should hear something from you. Even if you don't know I'm observing you, I should hear it or see something from you that tells me that you do understand godly counsel. That you do not just go off on what anyone and everyone tells you because you want to vote that badly. Your word should mean something. And not just your word, our word should mean something. We should not be known just as a bunch of people who will say and do anything. Once again, I do understand that things happen. And sometimes we have to work hard to rebuild that reputation. But you shouldn't let that be your lifestyle. Just lie Monday through Sunday. Every day is a day where you just say anything to get what you want. And that's my concern about election season. If we don't know the people we're voting for, sometime you might need to look on some of these push cards or look at some of this literature that's being sent out. And let the people, if you know some of the people on there endorsing others, ask them, tell me what you know about this person. And don't let them just tell you, well, you know, I'm voting for them because John voting for them. That's not good enough. You shouldn't vote just because. Now, if you have confidence in John, that's different. I can understand that. But now, if you casually know John, and even if you've never really talked to John, but you just see their name on there, and you feel as though, you know, I'm going to trust John because I believe John, if he says it, it has to be what it is. Just like the person, just like John can lie, the candidate could be lying. But that's why it's important that we know whether or not the person is who they say that they are. So often, if we read information, and we don't even attempt to find out, is there any validity to what this card says about a person? We just leave the Bible completely out of the mix when we go to the polls to vote. Because we figure if it's on a push card, it must be true. And we know that's a lie. Just because something is on a push card, it does not mean it's the truth. We can write, I'm a journalism major. I have a minor in journalism, excuse me. But information can be presented in such a way that it's faulty. Now, it may not come across as being faulty, but it can be written in such a way that it doesn't really bear the full truth of what you read. And that's why it's necessary for us to be able to say that we, in all honesty, know something about a person. Because, see, it does me no good to complain about a person whom I have helped to elect because I didn't do my homework. Now, we at the church I attend, of course, we have many elected officials that come to us. and what I like is that elected officials, I love to see them working in the church. I love to know that they have a church family. I love knowing that that their pastors vouch for them. I love it when I see them singing in the choir. I love it when I find out they're on the board of trustees. I love it when I find out they're a deacon. You know, I love it when you know, they have ministers in the family and they go to the church on a regular basis to help and assist with that ministry. It means a lot because it tells me, you know, you are working and actively engaged in the church. People who have no sense of God will do anything. What do they care about laws that are being invoked and placed on a book when you think all is well? Because that's your value. Because your character is such that it doesn't matter what the law, what the constituency says. I understand that, hey, I'm not godly. I'm not concerned about what they think. I'm in office now, and I'm going to do it my way. And when you're doing it your way, you have taken advantage of the people who put you in office. And then for those persons who are running around attempting to help you get votes, they too are guilty because they have lured others into believing something that's false and they make it appear to be true. We should be concerned about, once again, our name. Your name should mean something. When people hear your name, they ought to think integrity. When they hear your name, they should think about a character reference. When they hear your name, they should think about, you know, respect and dignity. It should mean something. It doesn't mean everyone's going to like you. It doesn't even mean you're going to be that perfect person. But at least it means that even your enemy can be at peace with you, even if they don't like you. But they can still say decent or good things about you. And so when no one can say anything good about you, we need to be concerned about that. And it doesn't necessarily mean that's a bad person, but someone ought to know something that they can say well on your behalf. If no more than say, I had an encounter with this person and I needed this and they were able to help me and it was resolved just like that and there were no problems. That's still a good testimony. Or I know that my sister, and I know that, you know, she's very, she's very concerned about whom she has dealings with. And she said that the person was able to assist her, you know, or the person assisted someone else that she knew. And she knows this person to be a person of character. And she believes what they say. And she can go back, or that they can go back and confirm what she said. There ought to be some confirmation as to the people we are electing. We shouldn't have to, you know, find out, as I said earlier, once they get in office, you know, and that these people are not who they have portrayed. And I still say, when you read information and you see this name, that name, this name, that name, and you think, wow, they are so well thought of. And then you began to investigate a little bit, and you find out they don't even know that person. Not really. They don't know them. But it sounded like a good deal. You know, I looked at the officials, the candidates running for president now. And if you look at them, it's obvious. God is nowhere in the mix. Nowhere. Nowhere. And if I don't get any revelation or any indication that you have an affiliation with a church, and when I say a church, I'm going to go with that. If you have no affiliation with the church, if you only go to certain places and you never, ever, ever take your Sunday morning or your Saturday, whatever day it is, and go to worship the Lord, you're always too busy. There are always too many more things going on in your life. And you can never tell me, and not just tell me, but I'm saying talk to the general public and say anything about what God has done for you. I'm concerned about you, and I don't want you representing me. You may talk a good game, and I don't care how good that game is. At the end of the day, you are not going to make the right decisions, because how can you make the right decision when you have no evidence, or when there's no God in your life? When there's no, when you are simply operating on your own in the flesh. We can't make the best decisions. People in the church who are saved need Christ in their lives to make the best decision. How can we make a decision as to what's right and wrong when we're just operating in carnality, operating based upon what we feel and what we think? You may have a very good heart. You know, a lot of people running for office have a very good heart and perhaps don't see themselves doing anything wrong. But it's much more to having leadership over people and working with people. You know, Solomon asked God for wisdom. Solomon just didn't decide on his own, I'm going to try to figure some things out. Solomon asked God for wisdom. The scripture says, if any lack wisdom, ask God, who gives to all liberally and upbraideth not. God will give us wisdom as to who to vote for. It will tell our elected officials how to vote, even themselves, when they receive that position, if they win. God can direct our paths so that we don't have to necessarily make mistakes, not for certain things. And if you make a mistake, you can, if it's a mistake, it's just that. And you can receive forgiveness for that. You know, you may not like the person that you selected, but you know what? You can still go back and you can be prayerful about the situation. And God can make something good come out of that situation too. So always think about when you receive printouts in the mail, when you receive anything, even for a national campaign, always you be prayerful about who should be the person that represents you. Do your homework. If you don't know the person, go into prayer and ask your Heavenly Father, who should you vote for? This is Joyce Rogers. You be prayerful about this election season. To God be the glory. And remember this, God doesn't make any mistakes. You be blessed.
Thank you for watching Joyce in the Word. If this has been a blessing to you, please prayerfully consider sowing a seed to Joyce in the Word. P.O. Box 29556, Shreveport, Louisiana 71149. Until next time, you be blessed.